It's no wonder that in 2021, San Francisco issued only 2,000 permits for new homes. Sure, there are people living in the streets, but that's because we want to make sure the apartments they don't live in are perfect. I don't fear AI anymore because it couldn't possibly be any more robotic than the humans who run things now. In San Francisco, the city's so nice you'll step in poop twice. So the city tried to build a public toilet last year, but then gave up when the cost hit $1.7 million. Not $1.7 million for a public toilet system.
It's finally happening. Bill Maher has turned his sights on Gavin Newsom, and this time, there's no applause track. Maher, once one of the governor's loudest offenders while California spiraled, is now calling out what many residents have been living for years. Overregulation, crushing taxes, a state bleeding people, businesses, and common sense, and Maher didn't tiptoe around it. The takedown was sharp, brutal, and unmistakably clear. The policies Newsom champions aren't saving California. They're hollowing it out. Coming from a former cheerleader, the criticism hit even harder. When someone from your own side stops carrying water and starts naming failures, that's not noise. That's a warning shot.
It's the vast network of regulators, administrators, inspectors, contract reviewers, project managers, fee assessors, special commissioners, zoning officers, and consultants whose jobs seem to be to make sure nothing ever happens and then charge you for it. The people who answer the phone, "Permit office, how may I hinder you?"
Maher zeroes in on California's addiction to creating endless agencies, offices, and task forces that seem to exist solely to justify their own budgets. Instead of solving real problems, the state buries everything under suffocating layers of bureaucracy that bring progress to a crawl. Anyone who actually lives in California knows how absurd it's become. Even fixing something as basic as a garage door can spiral into a bureaucratic circus. 2 or 3 separate permits, piles of paperwork, fees, inspections, and weeks, sometimes months, of waiting. What should take a single afternoon turns into a marathon of red tape. That's the frustration Maher is calling out. And it's not just about inconvenience. It's about a system designed to slow down everyday people while government offices continue to multiply. As Maher points out, the irony is brutal. The more agencies California creates, the less the state actually functions, leaving residents trapped in red tape instead of free to get things done.
Feels like San Francisco is actually proud of being impossible. Asked about the toilet, a spokesman for the Department of Public Works said, "We are a city of public input." Okay, but I'm stepping in public output. Meanwhile, the median time to get approval to build a house there is 627 days. That's 217 days longer than it took to build the Empire State Building. You need 87 permits, 15 from the Planning Commission, 26 from the Public Utilities Commission and the Fire Department, 19 from building inspectors, 17 from the Public Works, 10 related to public spaces, and 1 from a guy in a T-shirt that says Federal Inspector.
Take a look at the insane maze of permits required just to build a home in San Francisco. What should be a straightforward construction project turns into a full-blown bureaucratic endurance test. Before a single brick is laid, builders must slog through layers of approvals, environmental reviews, neighborhood hearings, design boards, and endless compliance checks. Each permit brings its own fees, delays, and consultants, and the costs pile up fast. By the time the paperwork is finally cleared, as much as 80% of the building budget can be burned before construction even begins. Maher points to this as a major reason housing in San Francisco is outrageously expensive. It's not just supply and demand. The system itself makes building so slow, complex, and costly that only the wealthy can afford to participate. The result is predictable: fewer homes, soaring prices, and a city that's becoming increasingly out of reach for everyday people.
Percent of workers in America work for the government. That's 24 million people with one shared vision: to fine you if your mailbox is too big. They say a conservative is a liberal who just got mugged, but it could also be a liberal who just got blocked trying to remodel a porch. Or got a parking ticket because their car was facing out instead of in. Last year, Wyoming began construction on the largest wind farm in North America that will power 2 million homes in Arizona, Nevada, and California. And to think it only took 18 years. Not to build it, to approve it.
It took a staggering 18 years just to approve a single project meant to deliver wind power from Wyoming to California. Let that sink in. In an era where politicians constantly shout about the urgency of climate change, a clean energy project was trapped in regulatory limbo for nearly 2 decades. That's 18 years of environmental reviews, public hearings, revisions, lawsuits, and endless bureaucratic box checking before anyone was even allowed to break ground. By the time approval finally came, the technology was outdated, costs had exploded, and the political momentum was long gone. This is the contradiction critics like Maher keep calling out. Leaders talk endlessly about green energy, but they run a system that makes building it painfully slow, sometimes nearly impossible. Instead of accelerating solutions, the regulatory maze chokes them to death. If it takes 18 years to approve a wind power project, it's fair to ask whether the system is designed to solve problems or simply stall them.
Area where homeless people were urinating and defecating, and it was starting to annoy the people breaking into cars. So the city tried to build a public toilet last year, but then gave up when the cost hit $1.7 million. Not $1.7 million for a public toilet system, $1.7 million for one toilet. So then a private company took pity on San Francisco and offered to build them their toilet for free. But after, quote, project management, construction management, architecture and engineering fees, permits, civic design review, surveys, contract preparation, and cost estimation, the free toilet was still going to cost almost.
Maher continues his takedown of Newsom by spotlighting San Francisco's now infamous public toilet fiasco during the governor's tenure. What should have been a simple, common-sense fix for the city's growing sanitation problems became a masterclass in bureaucratic incompetence. Nearly $1 million vanished into consulting fees, planning studies, and administrative costs. Architects were hired. Committees were formed. Reviews were scheduled, delayed, revised, and revisited. Paperwork piled up. Meetings multiplied. And after all that spending, Maher asks the most brutal question of all. Was the toilet ever built? No. Not one. Not a single usable public restroom. For Maher, this isn't just an embarrassing anecdote. It's a perfect metaphor for progressive governance gone off the rails. Endless process replaces actual results. Money gets burned debating solutions instead of delivering them. It's not just wasteful, he argues. It's humiliating. When a city can spend a fortune arguing about a toilet and still fail to produce one, something is fundamentally broken.
Estimates that if the red tape could be cut in everything that's currently stuck in the renewable queue, the United States would be 80% zero carbon in 7 years. The enemy to clean air isn't just big oil, it's big permitting. It's not that America isn't able to get anything done, it's that we're not allowed to. Of course, there should be consideration of the environment on everything we build, but as so often happens on the left, they seem to have no ability to recognize when they've taken a concept way too far and are in fact hurting their own.
Bureaucracy exists in every state, red or blue. But in places like California, it doesn't just exist, it mutates. Nowhere is that clearer than in the state's war on its own oil industry. California has stacked regulation on top of regulation, layering new taxes, compliance rules, and oversight mandates until operating in the state becomes wildly expensive and completely unpredictable. Governor Newsom even floated a windfall profits tax on oil companies, pitching it as a way to redistribute earnings back to Californians, on top of already crushing fees, environmental mandates, and reporting requirements. The result? Californians pay the price, literally. Federal data shows California drivers already endure some of the highest gas prices in the nation, largely due to strict environmental programs and state taxes that can add nearly $1 per gallon at the pump. That's not corporate greed, that's policy. And the industry is responding the only way it can. Major refiners like Phillips 66 and Valero have announced refinery shutdowns or explored selling off California operations altogether, openly citing the state's regulatory burden. When companies that supply essential energy start packing up and leaving, it's not a coincidence. It's a warning sign that Maher's point lands hard. Red tape and punitive taxes don't just punish corporations. They drive away investment, shrink domestic energy production, and leave everyday Californians paying more for less. California isn't regulating its way to a cleaner future. It's bureaucratizing itself into higher costs and lower supply.
Gulliver, the giant that got tied down with 1,000 tiny ropes by Lilliputians, the horde of little people who do big damage. Build back better? Sounds good. So does shovel-ready jobs. As Barack Obama once said, one of the biggest lessons he learned as president was there is no such thing as shovel-ready projects. Environmental impact statements used to be a few pages long. Now they're thousands of pages of legalistic nonsense and take an average of 4.5 years to complete, with thousands of bureaucrats filling out millions of paper forms that kill hundreds of forests to answer the question, is this good?
Maher then unloads on Newsom and other blue state governors with one of his sharpest metaphors yet, comparing them to Gulliver tied down by the Lilliputians. No single rope brings him down. Each thread is tiny, almost harmless on its own, but thousands of them, wrapped slowly and deliberately, leave even a giant completely immobilized. That's Maher's point. These governors aren't failing because of one catastrophic policy decision. They're being suffocated by a death of 1,000 regulations. Every new agency, board, commission, permit, and compliance rule adds another string, another knot, another delay. Over time, the accumulation becomes impossible to escape. What starts as reasonable oversight turns into paralysis. Systems designed to help end up trapping the very governments that created them. Projects stall. Reforms crawl. Nothing gets built, fixed, or improved without years of paperwork and legal hurdles. Maher uses the analogy to expose the core problem in blue states, especially California. Bureaucracy hasn't just grown. It has metastasized. And the end result isn't progress or innovation. It's stagnation, wrapped in good intentions and sold as responsible governance.
People living in the streets. But that's because we want to make sure the apartments they don't live in are perfect. I don't fear AI anymore because it couldn't possibly be any more robotic than the humans who run things now.
Maher argues that Gavin Newsom and his inner circle are incapable of thinking outside the box when it comes to fixing the bureaucracy strangling California. Instead of confronting the system head-on, they reach for the same exhausted playbook every time. Create a new agency, add more rules, announce sweeping reforms that somehow make everything more complicated. Maher's frustration is unmistakable. California doesn't suffer from a lack of ideas, talent, or money. It suffers from a leadership class unwilling to challenge its own machinery. Every problem is met with another layer of oversight, another task force, another regulation, each one making the state harder to govern and more expensive to live in. According to Maher, Newsom and his allies are trapped in a political bubble where bureaucracy is confused for progress. Paperwork replaces problem-solving. Process becomes the goal. And the result is paralysis. Housing shortages, energy constraints, and crumbling infrastructure drag on year after year. Not because solutions don't exist, but because no one in power is willing to cut through the red tape that keeps the system alive.
Not that there was ever any reason to build it in the first place, and not that there would be any reason to do it again. But just as an exercise in realizing how far we've progressed as the can-do people, I think we should all try to imagine how it will go down if we tried to sculpt Mount Rushmore out of a mountain today. First, we'd have to make the mountain handicap accessible, so we could hire handicapped people to work on the side of a mountain. Then there'd be a 10-year delay while we studied the effect of construction noise on the mating habits of woodchucks. Then another 10 years to obtain ethically sourced dynamite. And find a sculptor who doesn't only work from home.
Maher mocks Gavin Newsom and his political peers by joking about what it would cost and how long it would take. If America tried to carve Mount Rushmore today, what was once a daring engineering feat, completed with far less technology and far fewer resources, would now be crushed under the weight of modern bureaucracy. Maher argues the project wouldn't be stopped by granite or gravity. It would be suffocated by environmental impact reports, cultural and historical reviews, lawsuits, and endless public hearings. Before a single face was even sketched, costs would balloon into the billions. Committees would argue over symbolism. Activists would protest the intent. Regulators would freeze the project indefinitely. Why invoking Mount Rushmore? Maher highlights how modern governance, especially in blue states, has lost the ability to execute bold, transformative ideas. Instead of asking how to build something great, leaders obsess over process, optics, and compliance. The result is a culture where even imagining a monumental project feels unrealistic, let alone actually
regulations that aren't necessary, that aren't. I mean, you really don't believe that the state we live in, California, is lacking regulation. There's over 300,000 regulations. I mean,
Well, maybe they're needed.
They're not. When I tried to put in a garage door, I had to have 3 inspections. There should have been none. I should be allowed to change my garage door.
Are you kidding? Really? It was about a garage door?
Absolutely.
I'm sorry. Yeah, that is...
No, you know this about California. Come
No,
on.
I don't.
Well,
I'm sorry, I don't.
You've never heard that California is overtaxed and overregulated? That we are a one-party state where there's sort of no checks